For more on what happens following the Pope's death, we're joined by Reid Locklin, professor of Christianity and culture at St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto. Reid, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
What has happened so far today, and what will happen over the next few days immediately following the death of a pope?
Well, so the death has to be certified by a particular cardinal. In this case, his name is Kevin Farrell, is the person who holds this role. It has to be certified by somebody who has this role. His quarters are sealed in order to protect his papers and other belongings. That's really sort of has to do with his legacy. And then there's once that is formally announced by the Vatican, not just by the hospital, not just by the doctors, there'll be a 9-day period of mourning. I think within 6 days, we probably expect a funeral. Pope Francis changed the rules just a bit on the papal funeral, so it'll be a bit simpler. There are pieces of that he's presumably requested that we don't know yet and won't know until the actual funeral takes place. During this time, the various cardinals who are now all throughout the world will be gathering in Rome. And then in 15 days, they will go into conclave.
I understand that the conclave begins around 2 weeks after the funeral to pick the next pope. How does this process work?
Right. So it probably will be in 15 days. The cardinals have the option to extend it, but it'll be within 20 days. So it'll be in the next 2 or 3 weeks, probably in 2 weeks. And what happens is that all of the cardinal electors, those who are under the age of 80, will go into the Sistine Chapel. The doors will be closed. They'll be in there all day. They'll vote 4 times. So they'll take 4 votes during the day. If none of those votes yields a 2/3 majority for a particular papabile or possible pope, then they convene and they come back the next day, and there are 4 votes. And then the 3rd day, and then there are 4 votes. And if by that point they don't have 2/3 vote for one person, they take a break for a day, and then they come back. And the number of votes they're permitted to take in this way is 33. So they'll take up to 33 votes. And then at that point, the rules stipulate that if they've taken the 33rd vote and they haven't gotten a 2/3 majority, then the next step is to take the 2 people who received the 2 cardinals, well, usually they're cardinals, the 2 people who received the highest number of votes from the previous ballot, and to go to a majority vote between those 2. Right. So, but I mean, no conclave recently has gone that long.
And that's where the smoke comes in, right?
Yeah, so the smoke is actually a burning of the ballots. So the ballots are secret. All of this is secret. Now, it is true that people do talk to reporters, but usually long after the fact. So, like, we know a lot now about the election of Bergoglio. We didn't know it at the time. So they burn the ballots. So each time there's a vote, they burn the ballots. I thought this was quite an ancient tradition. It's not. It's only since 1914 that they've had this tradition of black and white smoke. Originally, what they used to do is dampen the ballots to get the black smoke. But I guess now it's a chemical compound. So they've got 2 different chemical compounds. But the smoke that's produced is actually produced by burning the ballots that had been cast.
That's something I'm sure many people will be watching closely for in the weeks to come. One last question for you, Reid. Pope Francis was seen as quite progressive. Do you expect the next pope to continue his legacy or return to tradition?
So I don't consider the Pope a progressive. I consider him somebody who was open to surprise. And, to the degree that he was progressive, it really wasn't so much about church teaching, which he was pretty strong to defend, the content of church teaching. It had to do with his willingness to think about exceptions. I think that what he was focused on mercy. Whatever the church is, it's a church that meets people where they are and meets them in mercy. And that meant that he was willing to think about exceptions for situations. I mean, the 2 most obvious ones had to do with people who are divorced and remarried and whether they can receive communion. That was a very controversial one. And then more recently, the possibility of blessing some same-sex unions. In neither case did he ever sort of challenge the church's teaching on marriage. But he said, we can accommodate people and try to meet them where they are in certain circumstances. So I would be very surprised if his successor, so he's at this point, he's chosen about 2/3 of the cardinals who will be electing him. Not the whole College of Cardinals, but the ones who are elector cardinals. But sorry, about 3/4 of them were chosen by him. And so I think it would be unusual to expect that somebody would be chosen who didn't think that they were bringing forward his legacy. But I think that what's important for people to realize is that his legacy is complex, and that different people could interpret what carrying forward his legacy meant in very different ways. And so I think that we should expect to have somebody who is committed to his legacy in some respect, but I think we should also expect to be surprised.
Expect to be surprised. Always good advice. Thank you so much for joining us, Reid.
Oh, it's my pleasure.